Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of SCCCI, I welcome all of you for taking time to attend this webinar on the market outlook and business opportunity in Vietnam. While COVID-19 has made many companies focus on their near-term challenges at home, I'm pleased to know that many businesses are also keen to be updated on the latest developments and opportunity in ASEAN. This afternoon, we will focus on Vietnam. Vietnam is one of the fast-growing economies in Southeast Asia. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Vietnam has been growing at an admirable rate of over 6% for a number of consecutive years. Like many other economies, Vietnam's economy has been hit by the pandemic. Growth is projected to slow to 2% this year. Vietnam has since rolled out a sizable economic stimulus and support package of almost 300 trillion Vietnamese dong to help businesses and households to save jobs. Strict quarantine measure and a widespread testing program has kept Vietnam's COVID-19 infection cases to a low number, although it was reported that there was another outbreak that started in July. If Vietnam can continue its record of keeping community transmissions of COVID-19 at bay while continue the momentum of its economic reform, Vietnam could not only recapture its pre-COVID-19 economic position, but drive new growth as well. Singapore and Vietnam have robust economic ties. Singapore company has been consistently investing in Vietnam through the years, making Singapore Vietnam's largest investor within ASEAN and the third largest worldwide. Some of the factors that attract Singapore companies to Vietnam include Vietnam's consistently strong annual growth of over 6% for many years, its abundant labor force, competitive wages, its huge population of more than 90 million with a fast-growing middle class, and an economy that contributes to liberalize and becoming even more business-friendly. Apart from the traditional sectors like manufacturing, consumer and lifestyle, tourism, hospitality, trading, and real estate, increasingly, Singapore companies are also exploring other growth opportunities in Vietnam. These include smart city solutions, alternative energy, and even the tech sector. All in all, Vietnam remains a top market within ASEAN of interest to Singapore companies. Today, we have a distinguished panel of speakers who will be sharing with us on the latest development and opportunity in Vietnam. I urge you to participate actively. I would also like to thank our sponsor OCBC and UOB for partnering Chamber to make this initiative possible. Last but not least, I also wish to express our sincere appreciation to our government partners, the Vietnam Trade Office, for this session, for your strong support. I wish every one of you a fruitful and productive session ahead. Thank you. Tiffany, back to you.
Thank you, VP Peg. Thank you very much. And now let me introduce our first speaker of the day, Mr. Suan Teck Kim, Head of Research, Executive Director of Global Economics and Markets Research at UOB Bank. He is currently responsible for macroeconomic and foreign exchange research with a primary focus on China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, and secondary coverage for the ASEAN region. He will also be sharing more about the economic and outlook of Vietnam post-COVID, as well as the new norms that will affect the country and industries in general. Do note, as Teck Kim has to leave earlier due to work commitments, we have arranged for a short Q&A session for him right after his presentation. Plus, for those who have questions for him, do key in on the Q&A box as shown in the icon below before the end of his sessions. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Teck Kim. Teck Kim, please.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Thanks for the invitation. Okay, also thanks, Mr. Peck. Long time no see. So finally can see you in the air because of this COVID situation. Okay, anyway, Let me share my screen with you as usual. You know, all these economies, especially when they talk, lots of numbers. So today I have about 20 minutes to share some of the contents with you. Of course, first of all, I want to thank Tiffany for the invitation again, and also for accommodating me, because later I have another webinar that I need to run to. And also for thanks this chamber, Chinese Chamber, for organizing this. It's very important to talk, also to find out more about the situation right now, and also what are the opportunities out there. There are a lot of opportunities out there, actually, even within this current COVID situation, where a lot of countries, a lot of places are under lockdown or some kind of lockdown, the opportunity. So that's why in this session, I would like to share with you some of these key points, some of the key points on the Vietnam market as well, and also the broader economy, some of these things that we should take note of. My name is Teck Kin. I'm with UOB, Global Markets, Global Economics Markets Research. You can find our material in the QR code on this screen. The presentation material will be sent to you after the session. I think Tiffany mentioned that earlier with this feedback form that you sign, you will fill in. All right, so without further ado, let me move on to the next item. Some of these key things, I'll talk about the impact from COVID, what are governments doing, which Mr. Peck mentioned earlier already, and also the post-pandemic, what are we seeing? Are we seeing improvement or not, right? And also look at Vietnam itself. What are the key indicators? What are they telling us? What are they showing us? Okay, the situation here is this. It is right now our situation is like like an accident. What we need to do, what the governments need to do, a lot of governments are doing that, maybe not some, but a lot of governments are doing that, is to stop this bleeding, right? If you don't stop the bleeding, the patient will bleed to death, and there's no good, no matter how much money or resources we are talking about. So a lot of governments are doing just that right now. That's the lockdown that we are seeing, to stop the bleeding so that we can recover. Right, so that we can recover. That's what we are doing. So we are at this stage now, roughly at this stage, the bleeding has more or less stopped for many places. The infection cases slowed down. I'll show you some charts as usual, some numbers for you to look at. And we are actually at some of us already in the recovery stage. Some are more advanced. One of the places that are more advanced is actually Vietnam, a more advanced stage. The rest maybe still a bit struggling here and there, right? So we want to see what is the situation out there and how can we make our decisions, yeah? Okay, right. So this is just a simple chart. Look at infection cases. This actually quite a few days ago already. 9 September, you can see that we want to flatten the curve, right? The government talk about flattening the curve, and that's what most of the places are doing. The flatter you are, the fewer cases, the better you can recover, the faster you can recover, right? And you can see that the charts, in terms of a percentage increase, 7-day moving average, that kind of thing. You can see the latest number is about 1% every day, 1%, right, off a large base. But some of the countries, some of the places are doing much better. Singapore, we have been recovering in terms of cases. Not that many. You see all those, Taiwan, Vietnam, and all those similarly. Okay, death cases as well. So we look at it. India having the most number of cases in this part of the world. In terms of growth, 7-day moving average, we see some countries not doing so well, right? Faster than the world average in terms of death cases. The reason why you want to control this is because there is a demand on your healthcare system, right? Hospitals, nurses, doctors, medicine. The more people you have in this group of infection, the more demand. And also when these people are not working, they are not producing, right? They are not making money, they cannot spend money, they are not even getting income, and the government is not getting taxes, and the companies cannot reopen quickly because of a lot of these, because of high number of cases. And if you open, you're going to get more cases. So it's become a very difficult situation that most of the governments want to control, right? Except some may not want to do a lot, but most of the governments want to control that. All right. So the impact is this, right? You talk about, oh, what is a second quarter number, GDP number? How is it like? Okay, I'll show you the US first, 33% negative in second quarter. This is really unusual because the usual pattern is this. In the middle, you can see all come together, all their growth rate is most of the time is positive, right? This number is positive, that's a positive growth. Most of the time, actually majority of the time. But then you have this, suddenly a big drop. So that's why we call it unprecedented. Because if you look at, for those who go to university, look at the normal curve grading and all that, this number at the far tail end, tail end event, at the far end, it happens like, let's say if it's normal situation, it will happen like 1 million years, 2 million years, or 3 million years. Once in 2-3 million years. That's why it's unprecedented. Not just in the US, in Singapore also the same. You see in the normal situation in Singapore, it's all positive numbers, right? Normally we have growth. Sometimes we get negative, right? Recession and stuff like that. But this is China. This is China. Most of the time it's a positive. And then you have suddenly a negative number, right? Suddenly a negative number. So it's really, really unusual. So this is China. Most of the time it's positive, 6-7%, 12%, 14% growth over the past 20 years, 30 years. Okay. Now this is Vietnam. Vietnam, same thing. If you look at the situation, the history is not very long, but you can see that most of the activities in Vietnam is always on the positive. That means always growth. There's always increase. Just like in a young country, just like in a young person, it's always growing, right? Getting bigger and bigger, growing. And this time we get a very small number, almost like 0. So again, unprecedented because of the COVID situation. Okay, so if you look at it around the world, or rather in this region, most of the time in the past, it's all fluctuating around some narrow band, right? Fluctuating around some positive number here. Very seldom we get a recession. Very seldom. Okay, very seldom we get a recession. Over the past few years, none of us having a recession. But you can see that second quarter, all the numbers all drop, right? Second quarter, all the numbers all drop. India dropped the most. And you can see that like ASEAN overall, the 10 countries or so, 10% decline because Singapore dropped by about 13%, Philippines 16%. And the few that are still in the positive, one is China, the other one is Vietnam. Right? So that's why today's focus, you look at Vietnam, how, what are the opportunities? Actually, later I have another session in another, in Hong Kong, for Hong Kong, actually look at opportunities in China. Right? So China and Vietnam is actually the places that we look for opportunities. Okay, so this is the situation where it is seldom, you take a look at the bottom part, the bottom half of the chart, that's a negative. Very seldom we get a negative, right? Very seldom. Even China, look at China, or even Philippines, very seldom, at least over the past 20 years. But Hong Kong is a bit unusual. A lot of times, the economy is quite volatile, right? But not the case for Vietnam. Okay, so so what in terms of numbers, I can see second quarter here. Second quarter, all the numbers are mostly negative except for China, because China suffered in the first quarter. That's a negative in the first quarter. So second quarter rebounded because they can control it very well, right? They can control the COVID situation very well. They managed to get out, so positive. And for the rest of the year, China are positive. But you can take a look at the rest of the region. Second quarter is mostly negative. And then third quarter, some are getting into a positive territory. The situation improved much better, but some are not. Who are those not doing so well? Thailand, Singapore, Philippines, and all these places not doing so well, right? Malaysia doing not so well, but not as bad as compared to us or Singapore or Thailand. And in Vietnam, suffer slow down until almost 0. Then we expect some positive numbers to come out in the third quarter onwards. So the situation in Vietnam and China and also US is much better compared to many other places. All right, so for the full year, you can see for the full year, 2020, almost a write-off for a lot of countries. We are going to have a major recession, for most of the countries, a major recession, most of the places. Even in India, if it is a small positive number, it's also a recession because they used to grow at 6%. So for many, many places, it is a negative number. It's a major recession, including Singapore, -5% or so, -6, -7, according to government, 5 to 7. Vietnam is going to have a positive number, so it's still not so good because I can grow at 6%, 7%, but now I only half. Right? The other positive place is Taiwan and also China. Okay, so China, Taiwan, and Vietnam are these places that can get out of the COVID situation and then move on, right? Move on to do better things. Okay, now next year, most of the places are expected to be positive. So are we back to normal already? Not so fast. Huh? Okay, people talk about vaccine. Yes, that's true. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is, this is the world. This is a world situation. The economy will grow at a certain speed, right? Grow at a certain speed, but because of COVID, get knocked out, get diverted, get a detour, get knocked off the path. Just like when you're driving, you know, there's a car accident in front, you cannot go straight. You have to go sideways, side roads and all that. So we are going the side roads. We are going the side roads according to IMF projection. We are supposed to have 87 trillion this year in terms of the world economy at the size, to grow to 87. But we only managed in this, because of recession, we only managed to get 80 trillion, let's say. That's a loss of 7 trillion. Singapore GDP is about 400 billion, by the way. So it's 7 trillion loss for the whole year. Okay, so next year we are going to grow a bit. So back on track a bit, right? Positive number, right? Just now I show you positive number. But if we have followed the path, we are supposed to be in 90 trillion already, you know. 90 trillion. So again, actually that's a loss. You know, some people, I'll tell you about it later. So are we going to get back to trend? We call it trend, get back to trend or normal by 2022? If we were to get back to trend by 2022, 2020, this year, we're going to suffer a loss for the whole world, about 5%, -5. Next year, the whole world will grow on average about 2.6%. In order to get back to trend, we need to grow at 7.6%. That is a very, very difficult challenge. That's a very challenging for us to get back to 2022, back to trend for the whole world as a whole. For some countries, maybe faster, like I said, some countries faster, some countries slower. Okay, so this is the same as our, if you are in investment, you know what I'm talking about here, but get back to trend. Warren Buffett has these two investment laws, two investment rules of investment too. First, don't lose money, right? Warren Buffett, first, don't lose money. Second rule, never forget the first one. Why is it don't lose money? We are losing money here. For instance, you start at 100. If you lost 50%, in order to get back to 100, you need to double from your position, right? 50%, you need to double from your position just to get back the where you started. So we are in this same situation here. We get knocked off our path and want to get back. It's a lot of effort to get back. So that's an investment law right here. All right. So, okay. So like what Mr. Peck mentioned earlier, the government spent a lot of money, and many governments spend quite a lot of money. Here on the left-hand side is a US dollar. Vietnam is about 13-something billion US dollars. So what Mr. Peck mentioned was in dong. In terms of GDP, most of the governments, we know that Singapore government spend about 20%, right, of our GDP just for budgets to get us out of the situation, plus an additional one, to get out of the situation, to help businesses, to help companies. So what you want to operate in is in a place where the government is able to help you when you are in trouble, when the economy is in trouble, able to help you, can give you money, just like Singapore can to tie you over the situation, have the capability to do that, the willingness to do that. All right, so most of the governments are willing to do that, right? So you can see that Malaysia is about 18% or so. Japan really spend a lot of money, 40%. US 12%, etc., etc. So this is to cushion the pain. In order to get back to normal situation, we still need to have the world going back to normal. Right? So right now, government is helping to stop the bleeding. You want to walk, you still have to walk on your own, right? All these are stopping the bleeding is not going to help you to recover. You only can stop the damage. Of course, if you don't stop the patient will die. But fortunately, the governments come in, many governments come in to stop the damage, stop the bleeding. Okay, so right now we are already seeing some signs of recovery, some sign. This is a PMI. Some of you may know this already, a Purchasing Manager Index. Basically, is the purchasing managers, you know, the orders that come in, etc. Give you the purchases, materials purchase and all that, buy materials to order materials. So that will give you some idea, my production side, whether it's going to continue more activities or less, right? So give you an idea, the PMI. So you can see that in the worst part is already basically over already. So we are getting back rebounded. Some are above 50. Above 50 means you are spending. Below 50, you are contracting. So some of the economies, the PMI, the industrial production, is actually still on a contraction mode, actually including Vietnam here, because of the Da Nang situation down there. So that's why you see the green line. There's a break in the green line, right? It was on the way up and then suddenly there's a break because it went back to lockdown again. But for most other places, like even US, actually back into the positive territory, emerging market. Even India is actually back to positive. Okay, export numbers, import numbers, you can see that again, we are off the bottom and then rebounding. This is ASEAN. 10 countries in ASEAN, we are seeing on average, most of the rebound taking place. And actually the rebound is actually quite strong compared to 2008. If you look at 2008, our current rebound is actually quite strong, right? Come off and then we are rebounding. Unlike in global financial crisis, actually it took about 18 months, to get back to positive. So right now we are on the way back to positive. I think possibly by next year or so. So less than 1 year. Okay. So you can take a look at most of the in terms of individual exporters and importers, the numbers have improved quite a bit. Compared to all these double-digit numbers of negative the prior month, the latest month are showing much improved in terms of export performance. So that is a good sign, right? That's a good sign. Okay, so the other thing is you operate in a country where you know, you'll be using foreign currency, you'll be buying foreign currency, selling foreign currency, and all that. So one thing to note is that how, you know, in 97, 98 financial crisis, you know, the rupiah got sold off, the Thai baht got sold off, even the Sing dollar got sold off. And this time round, actually the situation is so much more very calm. The currency, for instance, rupiah is the worst, lost about 6% or so this year. And Philippine peso actually quite strong this year, up by about 2-3%, you know, against the US dollar. So why is it that we are not seeing, you know, the big kind of financial market disruption? One thing, government came in, central bank came in. The third thing we need to note is that the reserve position for many countries, reserve position for many places are so much better compared to 1997. For instance, if you take a look at Vietnam, 97, 20 years ago, it only had 2 billion foreign reserve, 2 billion, right? So right now it's about 80 billion. So 40 times much bigger compared to 97. So that stabilized investor confidence. All right. And also the other thing you want to note is that the bigger the economy you are, the better you can tahan or withstand the shock from COVID. For instance, like India, despite all these cases, they are still able to move on in a way, you know, in terms of daily life, rather than the whole thing shut down, because the economy is so much bigger compared to, let's say, 20 years ago, right? Today is in the trillion. 20 years ago is like half a trillion, 0.5, so 4 times bigger. So most of the economies in Southeast Asia today are so much bigger. Take a look at Vietnam. 20 years ago, it's only 29 billion the size. Today is 262 billion. So the bigger you are, the more resources you have, you can take the punishment much bigger. Bigger the size the person can take punishment. Okay, so in terms of per capita, that means the richer you are, also the better you can take the punishment. So Singapore, Hong Kong, all these are rich places. They can take the punishment, they can spend money, they can get out. Even Vietnam is so much richer today compared to 20 years ago. Today, Vietnam, about 2007 per capita. It's actually 10 years ago, that's where Indonesia was 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, that's where Indonesia was, right? So it's much better position to take this kind of punishment. So finally, let me share with you, have a bit of, not much time left, share with you about Vietnam recently, recent performance. You can see that Vietnam, just as I mentioned, the GDP has dropped quite significantly. Year to date, first half of this year, the overall GDP is about 1.8% growth, 1.8%. But the biggest drop, where is the biggest drop? Is your industry, that's your production. So the manufacturing sector has dropped so much more because in the past, about half of, you take a look at the past, about half of Vietnam's growth came from the production, manufacturing sector. So now, because of the shutdown, because of the exports, the stop in the orders and things like that, so activity slow down. So overall, also a drop. The other one, very important, is your services sector. In Vietnam, the services sector also contributed a lot. That's where your tourism, your consumption, your spending, your retail shops, other things, even accounting firms and all that, all your services sector, even your IT are considered services. So because of the lockdowns, people cannot go out because of stoppage in activities. That's why you can see that the red part is so small. In the past, you can see that it accounts for another big part. So that is the situation now. Has the situation improved? Take a look at the retail sales in Vietnam, dropped by quite -5%, and now has rebounded near to the positive territory. But in the past, it's always about 10-12%. Take a look at the trade numbers. Again, you can see that a big drop here and return. Fortunately, your trade surplus is still accumulating. Your reserve will be accumulating, so that will stabilize your external environment. Now, finally, I want to show you what are investors thinking, foreign investors thinking about Vietnam. Because you have a COVID situation, right? You have a COVID situation, a lot of activities have stopped. By right, investment will also stop because your trade has already slowed down. Your services have slowed down and everything slowed down. How about investment? Actually, you'll be surprised to see that the investment from overseas, this is a foreign direct investment, coming from overseas is still continuing. Now, this year is August, year to date. Year to date is still at about 11 billion. Last year was a peak at 20. Of course, we should have more than 11 billion, but consider the situation here at the 11 billion mark is about the same as 2014 already. So right now we already achieved 2014. So the remaining of 4 months, we'll see what happened in the remaining of 4 months. But you can see that from March, April onwards, the flows are still coming in. As a result, you can see that this number has actually picked up. This is a foreign investors, the way to look at it. Why are they coming in? When people see opportunities, they will come in, right? They will continue to take advantage of opportunities. Take a look at this. This is a breakdown. Not the same kind of number, but another set of number also show you the same thing. 1 year ago, August, 1 year ago in August, there was 22 billion coming into the country. 1 year ago. Now this year, it's about 20 billion. So it's very similar. Now this is a registered capital. People register, okay, I want to bring in so much money. The other one is the actual flow. This one is the registered capital coming into the country. The two items are quite similar. August this year and August last year, very similar. So it will start you must be thinking, why are people doing that, right? In terms of all these little breakdowns, I think what I want to show you is that this is existing. We'll take a look at the existing investors continuing to put in money, right? Incremental capital, people pumping in new capital, also continuing the pace, actually faster, at a faster pace. More new investment are coming in, right? This is M&A. M&A depends on opportunities. If things are on sale, probably people will come in, there are investment opportunity. Given the COVID situation, probably the existing ones may not be up for M&A activities. Yeah. So you can see that this situation, those are investors continue to come in, the existing one and the new one continue to come into this country despite the COVID situation. All right, where are they going? Most of the people are going into a manufacturing sector, same, right? There must be a reason why. And also production of electricity, gas, That's the utilities. Good reason for that also, because we know that Vietnam is at the risk of running not enough power, right? Not enough electricity power. So less for real estate. That means most of the money that comes in, not to buy buildings or build buildings and buy land, right? It's more for manufacturing and to build plants and equipment. That's so far this year to date, August. Okay, most of the money, where did they come from? Just now, Mr. Peck mentioned, Singapore as one of the major ones. Indeed, Singapore is a major one. 50% of the new money that comes in came from Singapore. It's from Singapore. There must be a good reason for that. And also directly from China, directly from Korea, Taiwan, and all those places, right? So, so that is the picture so far. Some recovery coming in, a very difficult, very challenging year ahead, 1 or 2 years ahead. But meanwhile, I think the recovery is taking place, right? So don't miss out the rebound. Don't miss out. And also, investors continue to come in to invest in Vietnam. One of the reasons why, of course, is I think US-China relations, I think, is not going to get any better. The reason why is that there's a poll recently, a few months ago, that show those are people holding negative view on China. These Americans having negative on China has gone to record high. Negative view, record high. Positive view on China, record low. So this is about the American people, not the politicians, the American people. So breakdown by parties, breakdown by age, etc. Those who have positive views on China have dropped to record low, negative view, record high. So when you have situation like that, the politicians will do what they think people want them to do, right? So the US-China relations unlikely to improve very quickly, all right? So that's why the US-China relation, I think, could continue to drive your deglobalization, continue to drive your regionalization, supply chain movements, relocation will continue. All right, so that's the main bulk of my presentation already, and taking up quite a bit of time. So I will stop here and I'll pass the time back to Tiffany. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teck Kin. Thank you so much for the presentation. I hope the participants have much more idea about how's the economic situation going on in Vietnam. Now, as mentioned, Teck Kin has to leave earlier due to work commitments. We'll start off with a short Q&A session for him right now before the next presentation. So for any of you guys have questions, please feel free to key in your questions in the Q&A, so that Teck Kin will be able to answer. Now, if your question is not being able to answer during the Q&A session, please not to worry. We will be sending off the questions to Teck Kin for him to email you, contact you directly moving forward. Now, we're also pleased to have with us Mr. Chan Sai Hong, CEO of Kyocera Analytics, who is also a speaker for this session, to also moderate for the Q&A session. So now I'd like to pass off over to Sai.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Mr. Teck Kin. That was an interesting presentation from you. I see there's a few questions coming up from the audience now. One of it actually is in particular to one of the slides that you have mentioned that, the pandemic, when are we going back to normal? So in your previous slide, you mentioned about 2021, 2022. The questions is, when do you think the regional economies, such as Vietnam or even in Singapore, will return back to normal?
Hi, Sai, thank you so much for the question. I think, just now I mentioned about so-called normal. I think the normal here is quite, I think it's quite subjective already, whether we can get back to normal, the BAU or whatnot. But I think a couple of things, we have to depend on a couple of things. One is people talk about vaccine. So if the earlier we get the vaccine, I think the faster we can get back to so-called normal. But if you look at the news items and all that, once you have the vaccine, you need to be safe and effective. And also the most important is to get down to the people, right? To vaccinate the population. So that will take time. If you look at the chart that I showed just now, even for the world economy as a whole, 2021 is a bit too stretch. Most likely, I think 2022, even that, for the world economy as a whole, even 2022 may be also a stretch. So we are in for a long time. But for individual economies, I think for those that can control the situation better, they will get back on their feet so much better. I think China is one example. And then Vietnam also, we are also seeing a resumption of activities in Vietnam as well. China, I think the other way, and then Singapore also, I think some of these activities are slowly getting back to normal. Ultimately, it is a global pandemic, so we need cooperation from everyone. It's like a fire, yeah? If you don't control the fire, your neighbors don't control the fire, no matter how well you protect yourself, the fire will come to your house, right? So you make sure that there's the fire is put out in your neighborhood. Right, Sai? Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Taking, we are aware that you are gonna jump on another webinar. So
Right.
I'll take this last question. Actually, there's a few more questions.
Right.
Maybe take that down and then we'll respond back to the audience through email or whatnot. Now I'll pose you the last questions here, which is from Kay Lu. He was asking, what accounts for the strong investor confidence in Vietnam vis-a-vis other ASEAN, compared to other ASEAN countries?
Right. Okay. This strong investor confidence in Vietnam is actually quite obvious. If you look at, I don't have it shown here, but if you compare to other regional countries, actually Vietnam is quite strong. I think why, right? Question why? One is I think the ability to control COVID is very important. That is a signal to send to other people. When you are in trouble, I can control my trouble, and when you operate your business, you feel better. Right? As a businessman, if you go to a country or a place where there are riots and all that, and the government doesn't care, cannot do anything. I mean, as a businessman side, I'm sure you you also watch these things, right? The government's ability to control the situation or willingness also. So one thing. Second thing is I mentioned about this U.S.-China relationship. U.S.-China relationship, I think, is going to be not just that, and also the COVID. People want to have diversify their supply chain, etc., rather than having in one place. So you're going to have that, and Vietnam is a good alternative. Vietnam is a good alternative for companies to diversify their supply chain. Right? These are the two main reasons. The third reason, of course, the place has to be receptive, lah. The place has to be receptive, as in, okay, I have enough labor supply. My government has to be friendly enough to investors when they invest, right? And also all these conditions must be there. The infrastructure must be there, right? That's why you see just now a big bulk of investment into the utilities, electricity, gas, is to drive up, to make sure there's enough supply for those companies that are operating in that country, right? Your roads, I know the highways are open, like in this port connect to China, etc., etc. So those are the things that I think give people confidence to come in. A friendly environment. External factors are pushing companies, looking for alternative, right? And also the government itself, when they come to managing the situation, how well are they managing the situation? And they give people confidence as well outside.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Taking. I think there's a few more questions from Ernie and also Jane Koo. Probably we will take that down and then we'll let you go for now.
So maybe, Sai, I may interrupt.
Yeah.
For Ernie, the question on the third quarter, yes, is there. It's in the deck. I cannot remember the number. I think it's around 5%. So 3% in the latest quarter. So it's 5%. So it's in the deck itself. Yeah, the actual number. So full year. Then there's Jane Koo. Maybe I just take this one. Jane, is Singapore being a large investor in Vietnam? I think there's a reason for it. One is that today we are all sitting here in this, virtually, meeting. We're all meeting virtually here. It's because we have very strong connectivity through all these chambers. Like for instance, Singapore Chinese Chamber, they have all these members, right? They know each other, they have access to experts and things like that. So when you do that, when you have that facility, it makes people want to invest in this country through this country, right? So Singapore is a hub. It's a hub for a lot of things. It's a hub for finance. It's a hub for investment. It's a hub for regional headquarters. It's a hub for MNC. So people come here not because Singapore market is so big, they must come here, right? People come here so that they can go somewhere else. So that is what we are seeing here. Of course, some of these investments are from Singapore companies, the local companies that operate in Vietnam. Right? Earlier this year, I was in Hanoi. So I had the opportunity to have dinner with Singapore business people, the association, together to have dinner with those business people. And I was surprised to see that all those businessmen, they have been there like for 20 years, 30 years already in Vietnam, even before all this supply chain and things like that. So they are already existing Singapore companies. They are interested in investing in Vietnam because the government say you must expand your market, right? Especially with COVID, if you rely on Singapore, right? So you have, rely on other markets. So Vietnam is a large market because young population is rising. You look at the income, rising income, young population, and the digital part of Vietnam, all this IT related, so I should know this better. The digital part in Vietnam is very, very developed, very, very advanced, very strong, right? So these are a lot of factors, and companies from China, from US, Europe, they establish here because Singapore is part of ASEAN, Vietnam is part of ASEAN. So when you invest through Singapore, rather than directly in Vietnam, you actually also you have the backing of Singapore government and Singapore laws as well when you do up your commercial contracts and things like that. Of course, the local laws are important, but some of the international relations also come into play in investment as well. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully, I can answer these questions for you.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I'll pass the mic back to Tiffany and the time in the Q&A. For those like Tina and also Jane, probably other questions, we will take it up and then probably we will send it through the email. Or you can get connected with Mr. Tekin directly, I believe. Mic pass back to you, Tiffany.
Okay, thank you, Sai, and thank you, Tekin, especially Tekin, for your valuable sharing today. And we hope to have you as our speaker in future SCCCI events too.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Really glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tekin. Thank you so much. Okay, for the rest of the participants, rest assured that there will be another Q&A sessions going forward together with the rest of the other speakers. So like for Tina, for the rep office setup, rest assured we do have speakers that will be touching on this issue later on. Now, next up, we have Dr. Tu Quen Tran, Commercial Counselor, Head of Trade Office at the Vietnam Embassy in Singapore. She has been assisting Vietnamese and Singapore enterprise to understand the legal framework and business environment, as well as identify business opportunities since 2017. Now, she'll be talking about some of the key changes implemented by the Vietnamese government post-COVID and opportunities and investments that foreign businesses should explore after the crisis. So Dr. Quen, please.
I would like to thank Singapore Chinese Chamber for giving me the privilege to speak to fellow investors and share with you some info on the Vietnam economy in general, and particularly the prospect of Vietnam's manufacturing sector. I'm Quynh Trân, Head of Trade Office of Vietnam in Singapore, and I'm also the representative of Ministry of Industry and Trade of Vietnam. Before I start, let me share with you the main point I will make. Firstly, I will share with you some latest business update and COVID-19 situation in Vietnam. Secondly, I will share with you the manufacturing sector in Vietnam, and I will also explain the key orientation and priority given by our government. And I also give some insight to Singaporean businesses as for the potential sectors in manufacturing in Vietnam. And last but not least, I will tell you something about the background of the VTO and what we can do to support you. As Mr. Xuan Tekin already have a very detailed presentation, so I will just give you a quick view on the Vietnam business update situation. As for the growth rate, from January to June, we still maintain a positive growth rate, and we are the only one ASEAN country that can maintain the positive growth rate. And the growth rate of Vietnam for 2020 is expected between 1.8 to 3.5%. And it is comfortably that the manufacturing maintains still a very good growth rate at nearly 3%. And the PMI show sign of recover from 32.7 in April to 45.7 now. And also the industrial production index also increased between 3% monthly, especially in mining industry, in paper industry, chemical and electronics. It's due to our big market, our big domestic market, and the consumption index for the whole manufacturing in Vietnam maintained at a quite high level at 4.3%, and the retail market value still went up by 2% thanks to e-commerce. But still, the COVID-19 situation impact quite negatively to our economy. Around 8 million workers in Vietnam will lose their jobs or be retrenched in coming months. And we also see the trend of cessation of business entities increasing in comparison with last year period by 30.8%, and the new formation of business entities show signs of slowdown. But for foreign investor, Vietnam still a promising destination. Thanks to the EVFTA enter in force this August. Also, we can see a lot of interest from foreign investors. For example, Apple recently set to produce over-ear headphones, and it is the first time it will manufacture a brand new product outside China. Also, LG decided to move the whole production train from Korea to Haiphong, and Panasonic also decided to move fridge and washing machine from Thailand to Vietnam. And Foxconn opened its first factory in Vietnam, and other companies plan to open their factory in Vietnam, such as Ricoh, Dell, Nintendo, etc. And also for Japanese firms, recently, according to a survey realized by the Japanese government, 15 or more 30 Japanese firms survey decided to move production to Vietnam under their government scheme to diversify the supply chain and reduce the reliance on China. Another positive side of Vietnam's economy is the trade. We still register a strong exportation value with an increase of 1.6% in comparison to last year period. And the domestic businesses contribute mainly to this performance with an increase of 15% in comparison with last year period, while the FDI companies register a negative growth rate. Between January and August, the US became our leading export market with a turnover of 46 billion, an increase of 19% in comparison with last year period. And China still remains our important export market with a turnover of 27 billion, an increase of 13%. Our main products for export that still register a strong growth rate are computer and electronics with 24% increase, and machinery and equipment with 31% increase. And also for wooden products, we register nearly 10% increase in comparison with last year periods. As for the COVID-19 situation, as Mr. Tek Kin already shared with you the situation of COVID-19 in Vietnam, I just want to add that we control the COVID-19 situation quite good. And up to now, we only have 1,063 cases. And 931 cases already recovered and discharged. And from the beginning of September, we don't have any new community case. In almost the country, all activity resumed as normal since May, except for Da Nang, with first community transmission case reported in July, and Da Nang was under the lockdown during July and August, but from the 1st of September, the lockdown is also lifted, and social distancing measure also lifted in the whole country, except for bar, clubs, and cinema, karaoke in a few provinces such as Da Nang, Bình Định, Phú Yên, for example. And our domestic flight routes are among the world busiest. For foreign investor and foreign expert, we receive a lot of requests from investor and businesses that when we can enter to Vietnam. So we would like to share with you that from June, we open the special lane for a business purpose for Japanese and Korean businessmen. And several hotels in Ho Chi Minh City and other provinces have been allowed as packed isolation zones for foreign experts and businessmen. And from this week, commercial flight expect to resume to China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Cambodia, and Laos. And the talk to resume commercial flight with other countries is ongoing. And we expect that for Singaporean investor, it can be done by early October. I would like also to share that the flights are not open yet to tourists, but only for experts, business managers, high-skilled workers, investors, and their family members. And to enter to Vietnam, you will need to be tested for the novel COVID-19 within 3 days before boarding the flight. And the test must be conducted using the PCR method, and upon landing in Vietnam, you will need to be tested again at our centralized quarantine camps. And if you have 2 negative tests, the quarantine time will be reduced from 14 days to 5 days. But you need to remain at your accommodation until 14 days. For the quarantine option, I would like to share that for expert and investor and business managers, you can choose to be quarantined at your company offices, at your factory, or at hotels. So I would like to switch to my next point. Why Vietnam? Mr. Tekin already explained why Vietnam is a promising destination for investment. I just want to insist that we have a very young and skillful labor with nearly 55 million workers. And our domestic market is very high with a strong middle class, with an income raised at 5% yearly. Our wage is also low in comparison with other countries. For example, 1/10 with Singapore and 1/3 in comparison with China, for example. And the ease of doing business in Vietnam is also very competitive in comparison with other countries in ASEAN and also in Asia in general. For example, as the access to get electricity, the access to credit, and the ease to do the trade across border, or the ease to enforce the contracts or to start the business, etc. We also have an improving logistic infrastructure, and we are among the highest in ASEAN to invest in infrastructure and in education. Also, we are a country that very well integrated into the world economy with 16 ongoing free trade agreements. And we are also members of EVFTA and CPTPP. For manufacturing, the manufacturing share in our economy stay at 41%, and the labor force working in manufacturing is 12 million, about 20% of our total workforce. But we export, but the value of industrial export in our total export value share is 90%, and the growth rate of industrial added value during the period 2015-2020 is very high at 7% each year. And also the production, the industrial production index remain very high between this period from 10 to 12%. And we are the top 3 in ASEAN as regard the competitive industrial performance index. For industrial infrastructure, I would like to share with you that we have 326 industrial parks with total 95 hectares in, and we are now having 251 on operational and 7 other under construction. We also have 17 coastal economic zones with nearly 900,000 hectares and 3 high-tech zones, and in 2030 we will have 6 high-tech zones which distributed quite evenly around the country. Here in the table you can see a few main destinations for Singaporean investors and the rate of occupancy in these industrial parks, and also the rental price for a few locations in Vietnam. You can see that the lowest is in the Mekong Delta area and in the north of Vietnam. And also the occupancy in the north of Vietnam is also the lowest. And it's also the destination for investment that our government is encouraging investors to invest in. As for the human resources, I would like to show here in this slide that for IT resources, we have nearly 500,000 employees in IT sector with nearly 50,000 new graduates yearly from 153 universities in Vietnam. In terms of IT skill value rank, we rank 29 in the world, and in terms of coding performance, we are among the top 10 in the world. As for the high-tech training, we have 300 university and training locations in Vietnam to provide human resources for biotechnology, for new material like technology, or for automation. Also for research and development capacity, we have about 250,000 staff working in research and development. And under the Ministry of Industry and Trade, we run and manage 25 colleges and 9 universities to provide human resources for sectors such as electricity, chemicals, machinery. For the coming years, our government have fixed a few orientations to adjust the industrial growth from primarily focusing on quantity to focusing on productivity, quality, and efficiency. We would like to promote the development of industry and product with high added value and export value. We would like to link manufacturing with the development of industrial services, and we would like to attract investors on the development of auxiliary industry such as mechanical, chemical, telecommunication. We would like also to enhance the development of industry to serve agriculture and rural areas and energy efficient industry. We also want to rearrange the allocation of industrial space, ensuring compatibility among national regions and address the problem of high industrial density in the south of Vietnam, especially in Bình Dương, Dong Nai, Ho Chi Minh City, etc., to ensure the balance and harmony among regions and locality. We would like also to develop a few core industrial areas in key economic regions and coastal economic zones. To do so, we will enhance the coordination of development by sector, region, and territory, and we will improve the efficiency of the direction and administration to effectively link between locality in industrial development. We will also gradually decentralize to improve the efficiency of the state management of the industrial development process. We will also create the legal framework to effectively protect the ownership right and ensuring the equality in access to resources. We are speeding our review, adjust, and supplement technical regulation and norms to be consistent with international standards. And we continue to accelerate the restructurations of the state enterprises toward the privatization and equitization. We also develop the roadmap for increasing the proportion of large and medium-sized enterprises and for increasing the total number of industrial manufacturing enterprises. We also strengthen the role of business association and non-governmental organizations. And for example, our role here of the trade office in Singapore is to better support Singaporean businesses to link with Vietnamese partners in Vietnam. Now, I would like to invite you to visit the Ministry of Industry and Trade website. Yeah, we just developed a database to connect Singaporean and worldwide investors in industry to connect with different partners in Vietnam in different industry, from mechanical engineering to automobile, electronics, textile and garments, leather and footwear. And also in this database, you can also have information regarding industrial area, industrial cluster, and consulting services for you. For example, here, if you look for stamping, mold making, mechanical processing, for example, you can see here the number of Vietnamese companies operating in this sector. So in 2025 and with the vision to 2035, the priority industry that we are focusing are machinery and equipment, shipbuilding, steel manufacturing, manufacturing, petrochemistry, pharmaceutical, etc. And for electronics, we aim at producing more industrial software and electric components. So here is the potential sector for Singaporean businesses to explore in industry. And we would like to enter into details. For example, for mechanics and metallurgy, we really look for investors in steel manufacturing, such as steel sheets, shaped steel, and alloy steel, with improving design capability. And also, we look for investors that can provide us the technology to produce agricultural machinery. For chemical, we very interested in products for producing petrochemical and pharmaceutical, especially drugs, adjuvants, and vitamins. For maritime industry, we interest on offshore and marine related cargo, marine vessel building and repair, marine engineering, and logistics. For food processing, we really need expertise from Singapore to help us to building and developing specific trademark for Vietnamese products, especially for halal food products. For supporting industry, we would like to attract for Singaporean investors to auxiliary materials for leather and footwear, because we are very dependent on Chinese auxiliary materials for now, and we would like to develop our resilient capacity for this supporting industry. For new energy, we would like to invite Singaporean businesses to invest in wind power, biogas, biomass, and geothermal energies. And for electronic and telecommunications, we would like to invite you to invest in software and electronics and telecommunication devices, cruise missile electronic control and risk connections, and such electronics. So what we can do to support you? The Vietnam Trade Office in Singapore, we are the economic department of the Vietnam Embassy here. And we are member of the 63 Worldwide Trade Office networks of the Ministry of Industry of Vietnam in the world. Here in Singapore, we are responsible for trade and investment promotion and cooperation activities for the development of trade, e-commerce businesses of our two countries. We will support you to better source, sell, and find partners in Vietnam with more trust and efficiency. We also assist Singaporean enterprises to identify businesses, opportunities, customers, suppliers, and partners through trade mission, through hosting foreign business missions to Vietnam and organizing business meetings, webinars, seminars, etc. We also help to guide you to trade and investment in procedure in Vietnam, help you to establish enterprises, build factory, and choose investment destination. We also support you to participate in trade shows, trade expo in Vietnam, and to enter to Vietnam markets, and to get the special license if you would like to export special products to Vietnam. We can also arrange you to work with state agencies, especially with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, for import-export licenses, for retail market participation, for e-commerce participation, for evaluation of investment project in trade, in industry, in energy. We also want to help you to solve other difficulties and problems while doing business in Vietnam. And we would like to invite you to visit frequently our website, VNTrade.SG. It is an unique way to trade and investment opportunity in Vietnam for you, especially designed for Singaporean businesses. So in conclusion, I wish to highlight that with the world at a crossroads, it is a time for us to further diversify our business resources. So the Trade Office of Vietnam Embassy is here to support you to figure out new opportunity to invest and to look for new businesses opportunities in Vietnam. So thanks for your kind attention.
Okay, and thank you, Dr. Quan. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I hope all the participants have much more in-depth understanding of what are the different sectors and opportunities that's available in Vietnam itself. And for those of you who would like to find out more details about how to go about, how to set up your office, everything, like what Dr. Quan has said, Vietnam Trade Office is based in Singapore. Just give them a call, drop by their office, or, just contact with Dr. Quan to find out more details how to go about. Now, without further ado, we would like to invite our third and fourth speaker for today. We have with us Ms. Tam Nguyen, Business Advisor Services Manager, and Mr. Tang Vu, Tax Services Manager of Dezen, Sira and Associates. Now, they are based in Vietnam, and just for your information, Ms. Tam Nguyen has, the company has more than 15 years of experience in consultancies and legal practices, and Tam coordinates and provides legal advice to foreign investors. Now, Mr. Tang Vu provides advice on tax compliance and regulators matters such as cross-border transactions, as well as assessments of double taxation treaties, assistance in DTA notifications, and tax refund applications. Now, both of them will be sharing more about the key considerations that companies should take note before venturing into Vietnam, as well as the common mistakes that foreign companies make in terms of legal, taxes, and business regulations. So over to you, Tam and Tang.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tam. I'm a manager of business advisory of Dezen Sira based on Ho Chi Minh's office. As a quick introduction to those who are not familiar with us, Dezen Sira and Associates is a foreign investment consultancy firm that assists companies to enter and do business in Asia, and we provide the remarket into research, corporate establishment, and professional services such as legal, accounting, tax, HR advisory, and ongoing retainers. We have 3 offices in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, Da Nang, and Hanoi, as well as other offices across India, ASEAN, and China. Joining to up here today as a speaker, I would like to share some new Vietnam regulation from the legal perspective affect the investment and business operation in Vietnam. Also, the key consideration that the foreign investors should take note before joint venture, venturing into Vietnam, as well as common mistakes after investing in Vietnam. Okay, first I would like to start with the key update on the Vietnam entry regulation during the COVID-19. Because there are some contents that shared by our Dr. Huỳnh in her presentation previously. So in this part, so I just focus on keys, the updates on the regulation in the legal perspective only. Entry suspension for foreigners is still in place since March 22. However, the foreigners who are foreign investor, manager, technical expert, high-skilled workers has been facilitating their Vietnam entry for doing business in Vietnam. But being able to enter Vietnam, they need to have a sponsor company, and they have to submit and respective supporting document for the Vietnam entry purpose. And they have to follow the step of approval and must have the commercial flight tickets. And upon arrival, they have to subject to the 14-day quarantine. Now we have some updates on the quarantine the quarantine periods, but in practice it has been not yet applied up to now, but we hope it will be soon. Also for the case that the foreigners or who comes to Vietnam for the short business trips less than 14 days, the quarantine for the 14-day quarantine may be removed. And the foreigners, they have to pay for the quarantine fee. Also, any medical treatment if COVID invested in Vietnam. Next will be the key changes on the Vietnam laws on entry, assets, transit, and resident of foreigners that effective since July 1st to 2020. Vietnam starts to grant the electronic visas to citizens of 80 countries from the 1st of July. And the list of countries from which the citizens are able to apply for e-visas is available now on the websites of the immigration authorities. And now the foreign individuals are allowed to change their visa purpose under specific conditions without having to leave and re-enter Vietnam. This is not applied before. For example, tourist visa can be converted into a visa of business, investor, working, or spousal if they have a supporting document to prove respective purpose. And this is also the first time the investor visa and TRC are applied to the representative of a corporate foreign investors. Before in the investor visa and TRC is just applied for the investor, individual investor only. So based on the new regulation, the new law, the foreign investor now shall be ranked the different types of visa and temporary resident card with different types based on their capital contribution in the company in Vietnam. And below the top pillars are the different types of visa and TRC capped by the capital contribution of foreign investor. We can see that we have 4 types of visa and TRC. DT1 will be applied for the foreign investor who has the capital in a company in Vietnam from 100 billion Vietnam dong or more, with the maximums for periods for visa is 5 years and 10 years for TRCs. And also another type DT2 apply for the capital contributions from 50 billion to less than 100 billion Vietnam dong, with the maximum duration periods for visa is 5 years and for TRC as well. Another types of visa and TRC is DT3 apply for the foreign investor with the capital contribution from 3 billion Vietnam dong to less than 50 billion with the maximum terms is 3 years. And the last one is the DT2, DT4, and just apply for the the foreign investor with the capital contribution less than 3 billion Vietnam dong. But in this case, only visa is applicable because normally the TRCs is only issued for with the periods from more than 1 year. Okay, we move on the key changes on the new law on investment. This law will be take effective on the 1st of January 2021. According to this new law, some of services are removed from the conditional business list, such as logistics, shipping, franchising, provision of training in real estate brokerage and property exchange operation. But now the regulations to guys for such for the new laws is not available at the moment. So I think that we need to closely follow up for the regulation, the update regulation, and to follow up the remove condition for the franchising logistics service, because there are some restrictions on the foreign owners to such business line may be released in some so that support due in the investment plan in Vietnam in future. And also now the foreign ownership threshold is slightly adjusted from 50% to 51%, in which determine an economic organization with a foreign owned capital that must satisfy conditions right to the investment in Vietnam. So that means for the companies in Vietnam with the foreign ownership more than 51% will be treated as a foreign owned company in Vietnam and subject to the conditions when invest in Vietnam as well. For the case that where share acquisition, investment in by acquire the shares of the company in Vietnam, in the case that if any resulting in an increase of the foreign ownership ratios in the target companies and the foreign investor holding more than 50% of the share or just the capital after M&A transaction, an in-principle approval for such case will be applied. Next will be the case change on the new laws on enterprise. This law is also effective from the 1st of January 2021. Under this new law, the procedures of notifying the corporation sample is removed, and now the enterprise has right to decide the number, the sample of the corporate sales, especially the digital seal, shall be recognized, and if the enterprise comply with the regulation of electronic transaction and digital signature. And also the condition that shareholders or a group of shareholders of a joint stock company must hold ordinary share in consecutive segment is removed as well. The minimum ratio of share owned by a minority shareholders or a minority group of shareholders of a joint stock company now reduced from 10% to 5% of the total ordinary share, unless the trustees stipulate a smallest percentage. That means the shareholder holding at least 5% of the total ordinary share has the right to request the convening of a general meeting of shareholders in certain case, and also can request the board of the inspection to investigate some issue relating to the management and administration of the company. And the new law on enterprises also resolved the conflict between the current law and regulation of forest regulation regarding the payment methods on the capital transfer by foreign investor. Now on the law on the enterprise, one clause refers to the regulation of the forest regulation is that any payment for the purchase, share, or transfer of share or capital contribution and receipts of dividend, as well as transfer of profits abroad by foreign investor, shall be made via bank account in accordance with the forest regulation. So it means that the payment for share purchase is now must be complied with the regulation of the forest regulations. And according to the forest regulation, in particular the circular 06/2019, the capital transfer between the two investors, being non-resident or between investor being resident, shall be not made via direct investment capital account. So that means they can make the transfer for the share payment via indicated bank account agreed by the both parties. And next will be some key changes on the tax, and my colleague Thang will present some.
Thanks, Ms. Tam. I'm Thang. Hello, everyone. I'm Thang, the Associate Manager on Tax Division of the ASEAN and Share. I would like to update you about the tax subsidy policy for small and medium enterprises to recover from the impacts of the COVID-19. So basically, after the impact of COVID-19, after the impact of COVID-19, the Vietnamese government and the Ministry of Finance has issued quite a few circulars and guidance to assist the business after the pandemic so that they can recover after the pandemic. The subsidy policies include the reduction of stamp duty and reduction of other administrative and registration fee for registration with some authorities, and but the most important policy is which I'm presenting right now is the reduction of corporate income tax for small and medium businesses. Like at first, the target of this tax subsidy policy only aim for small business who are vulnerable to the impact of the pandemic. But after a few weeks of debates and argument between the members of the Vietnamese National Assembly, they decided to finalize this resolution so that it can be applied for all small and medium businesses in Vietnam, which are accounted for approximately 98% of the companies that are operating in Vietnam, including local and foreign invested enterprise. So, how do you determine if you are eligible for this tax subsidy policy? Simple. If in 2020 tax assessment year, you have the total revenue from your business operation, and the total revenue does not exceed 200 billion Vietnam dollars. It is almost 9 million USD. You are eligible to get the reduction in your corporate income tax payment. Again, at first there is some draft regulations on the number of employees and number of employees subject to social securities, but it's all done. The only condition to get this type of tax subsidy policy is to have your total revenue for 2020 less than 200 billion Vietnam dollars. So The effective date is 45 days after the signing date on the 3rd of August 2020, and it is applied retroactive for the whole 2020 tax assessment year. So the standard tax income corporate income tax rate for enterprise in Vietnam is 20% of your taxable income and your profit. But now, since this policy is applied, your total corporate income tax rate for 2020 will be only 40%. That is 70% multiplied by 30% the reduction. You got the duration where this policy takes effect. And how to apply this in your 2020 corporate income tax finalization tax return. There is a section at item 9.2 for you to do so. But I have discussed with some of the tax representatives that they are modifying their electronic portal in order to automatically reflect such a reduction on your corporate income tax return. Just a few notes for you to see how you can apply it and what you should be aware of when you are applying this policy. This policy is currently only applied for 2020 tax assessment year. So if the 2020 tax assessment year end, this policy is no longer in effect. But don't you worry, because there are some unofficial information from the Vietnamese government that they are trying to give more incentive package in order to encourage business to thrive in 2021 and to encourage investment from overseas corporations. And it is simple. The taxpayer or you have to assess your eligibility by yourself. And like I said, the standard corporate income tax of Vietnam is 20%. By applying the 30% reduction of corporate income tax, now the total corporate income tax for 2020 will become only 40%, and it is applied for the whole 2020 tax assessment year. And if you have already made the provisional corporate income tax payment during the year, and you have a surplus for the whole 2020, you can choose to offset the overpaid amount against the tax payable amount for this year, or you can choose to request for the tax refund. That is the most important tax subsidy policy that is given out by the Vietnamese government to support the business after the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, in order to have the business recover after the pandemic. Now, we would like to talk about the key considerations for foreign investors that for them to consider before they venturing into the Vietnam economy after this pandemic. Back to you, Ms. Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, foreign investors, so I think they need to consider take some key consideration prior to invest in Vietnam. First, the foreign investor should have or study and understand the permitted investment firm in Vietnam. Currently now we have some firms, some investment firm, like investment in establishment of a business entity, or investment by acquiring the share or contribution capital in an existing entity in Vietnam, or some others, some other investment like under a public partnership BPP contract, or a business corporation contract we refer as a BCC. But for the BBC and BPP, that's not a common investment firm that attracts to the foreign investment in Vietnam, investor in Vietnam. And the most common investment firm are establishment of a company, and also by acquires the share of an existing company. But in the case that the foreign considers the investment in establishment of business in Vietnam, so they need to consider the right firm, the right entity firm before they do the registration. Currently, now we have some firm for the business entity like a representative office, and else a limited liability company or a joint stock company or a partnership. Yeah, but based on the investment purpose of each foreign investor, they should consider the entity type and entity for which are matched for their business, for their investment purpose. Yeah, and also the foreign investors need to understand the restriction or the foreign ownership in some business lines. Now we have some business lines not allow for 100% of foreign ownership. For example, advertisement, tourism, logistics, transportation, service, or auditing accounting services, etc. Also, some business sectors are lawfully require the minimum capital. For example, real estate with to 20 billion Vietnam dong of minimum, or transport service, health and social service, education service, etc. And one more thing is very also important is that the foreign investor needs to consider that is the qualified location for the office of the premise for the corporation registration. Now, in our practice, a virtual address or the office should not facilitate for the corporate registration in Vietnam if it is clearly addressed in an office lease agreement or MOU for lease. Actually, in practice, there is some case that we can register for the virtual office for the company or for rep office, but that should be suitable for the short terms of business, because the licensing authority, it can visit the site, and if they found out the address of the office is virtual also, maybe some potential risk in the later stage. Answers. Some are consideration on the business line where the subscription will be required before. So in such case, so the company has to apply and obtain for the subscription before they conduct operation. Otherwise, maybe in the case that if any inspection from the licensing authority, the company may be subject to an administration file. For example, for some business line that require for subscription, such as retails, recruitment service, construction, e-commerce, medical clinic or hospital, etc. And next, the foreign investors is also need to understand the regulation on the setting up or using a corporate bank accounts. Yeah, under the current law, the direct investment capital account, or we refer as DICA, and the current bank accounts as the most important, the two most important accounts for the foreign investor, but each account has a different function. The DICA, why the DICA is used only for loan, dividends, and capital transfer in and out of Vietnam. The current bank account is just used for the daily business transaction only. Yes, so in this case, so if the capital is transferred into the current bank account, the capital contribution will be not acknowledged. The deadline for the capital injections is also very important. the registered capital must be injected within 50 days since the day of issuance the company license, and it must be transferred via a DCAS. And almost the case that we have been experienced that come to us for advice, because they have transferred the money, the capital in the wrong bank account, and also over the due date for the deadline of capital injection. And the corporate compliance required by the Vietnam laws is also very important for the company after they set up. Because the foreign investing company in Vietnam shall be required to file periodical reports on its activities, obligation of the labor tax, audit, financial statement in respect of the investments. And further, in the case that they fail to comply with they fail to do the compliance, that can be linked to a potential risk for the operation in the case that any inspection from the company and the competent authorities, and the consequence shall be costly and timely to face. Now we move on to for the common mistake made when investing in Vietnam market. The common legal mistakes that foreign investors make in the Vietnam market that we have experienced from our clients, such as the capital injection in the wrong bank account, as shares earlier. In the case that if the company, the foreign investor injects in the wrong bank account, so the capital contribution will be not acknowledged for the company. And in some also the common mistake is the foreign investor, they just think that the loan or financial support from the owner can be funded at any time and no need to do the registration with the licensing authority. And also when we do the registration, the foreign investor, they underestimate the timeline of the procedures, because even that Vietnam government define the statutory timeline for issuing the license certificate, but almost the licensing authority may lengthen the timeline due to some administration procedure when they need to consult with the other competent authority for licensing. For example, in some cases that is normally applied for the conditional business line. For example, when we set up, we register for opening a restaurant. So the licensing authority, they need to to consult with the other competent authority for the locations. So, and the timeline will be longer than normal. And not being well aware of the compulsory compliance after the setup and during the operation, like tax registration, filing, periodical report filing is also one of the mistakes that we have been experiencing from our clients. And my colleague Thang will share you all the comments mistake on the tax, regarding the tax.
Thanks, Ms. Tom. The most common mistake that we see for foreign investors that make on a daily basis is that they tend to think optimistically about the taxation environment of Vietnam. Similar to other countries, that the taxpayer expectation are usually contradict with the tax authority expectation. As a taxpayer, you always positively think that you have done nothing illegal. You have comply with the regulation on registration, and you pay tax regularly. But you tend to think that okay, the less tax you pay, the better, right? And but for the tax authority, they do not share the same perspective. Oh, they will try to see if you have make any mistakes with the your day-to-day operation, and you see if there are any misconduct that is made by the business, and they tend to think that okay, they are business, right? So they are making profit, and the more profit they make, the better. So I can collect the more tax, the better. That is the contradiction in expectation between the taxpayer and the tax authorities. As a tax advisor, I always tend to think like a tax authority in terms of tax compliance for business. So we tend to advise the business the risk of their tax compliance. We try not to pursue them, to suggest them to get some tax break or tax incentive. But we always try to advise our clients on the tax risk for doing business in Vietnam. The most common tax mistakes that business make is to have the misconception on the possibility of getting a corporate income tax incentives in Vietnam. But first, let me have a quick overview. Let me give you a quick overview of corporate income tax in Vietnam, or you can call it a tax break or tax holiday. It's up to you. The first thing is the first incentive is 4-year tax exemption and 50% of tax reduction for the following 9 years. This is applied for manufacturing and investment in the areas of Vietnam which is considered to have difficult and extremely difficult social economic condition in the rural areas, or have a high employment rate, and which if your investment can create jobs for those areas, you can get this tax exemption. And the applicable corporate income tax of 10% for 50 consecutive years. The first two examples of corporate income tax are also applied for business engaging in production software. I'll get to that later on. And 2 years of tax exemption and 50% of tax reduction for the following 4 years applied for business that invest in rural areas and in the industrial park. And the applicable corporate income tax of 70% for 10 consecutive years if you engage in some certain business activities, or if you invest in Vietnam in terms of an AP is an export processing zone. I would like to show you some common issues for applying CIT incentive. First is it is written on your license versus the fact in the tax regulation. Sometimes on the registration of investment license, it states that you are eligible for tax incentive according to corporate income tax law. It doesn't make you automatically be eligible for tax incentive. You need to check your condition, your conditions in the tax regulations, and you have to self-assess your business scenario and circumstances in order to ensure that you are eligible for such type of tax incentive. I know many investors tend to think positively and optimistically that okay, my business sector sounds like I can get this incentive, so I can apply the tax incentive. But no, as a tax advisor, I always try to tell the clients that no, you have to assess the risk first. Or what is the risk of being ineligible and being rejected in the future tax audit or tax inspection? I will tell you the risk. If you're unsure if you can get this tax incentive, you can prepare a letter to request your supervising tax department to provide official guidance. If you're unclear how your business works that can be eligible for tax incentive. And during the reporting tax reporting period, the tax authority will not give you any comments or responses on your current tax compliance. You can declare whatever you want. You can declare loss, you can declare high expenses and low revenue. But when the time comes and the tax audit or tax inspections are carried out in the future, you're gonna end up with a huge amount of tax payable plus penalties and for misconduct. So as a tax advisors, I always advise our clients to look at the risk first before thinking that you are eligible to get some tax break or tax incentive. You have to look at the risk first. I think that's the end of our presentation. If you are looking for some for guidance on the business and legal and taxation environment of Vietnam, you can visit our website at vietnambriefing.com. We update the business scenarios on a daily basis. Yeah. And we have office all over Asia. Yeah, you can refer to this slide. And we also have a home. Yeah. So that the end of our presentation. I will leave the microphone to the next speaker.
Okay, thank you, Tham Vu. Thank you so much, Tham and Tham Vu, for the wonderful presentation. Okay, I hope that the participants have a bit more idea about, the different tax and regulation. I understand it's quite a lot of information, but if you want to find out more information like different industries and different regulations, you can email Tham and Tham Vu. Do take note that we'll be sending off their contact point after the whole session through the email, so you can just email them directly after that. Now we have come to our last speaker for today. We have Chan Sai Hong, CEO of Kyocera Analytics. Okay, as the leader of a MarTech startup, he's also with business every step of every ways and helping them to innovate more effectively in the technology revolution. So he'll be sharing more about some of the key challenges he faced as an SME when venturing into the Vietnamese market, as well as the ups and downs that the company experienced in the process. So passing off to you, Sai, please take it away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you for the introductions. I'm sharing my screen right now. Can anyone see it? Tiffany, on my screen?
Yes, not a problem. We can see it.
Okay, great. So, well, the slide itself is get drunk on culture on the first page. Actually, we are close to happy hour, so maybe after the webinar, all of you can get a beer and just relax for the rest of the day. So for my presentation today, before I actually get started, I would like to thank Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce and also the sponsor from OCBC and UOB to give me the opportunity to have to share my humble experience with everyone for doing a business in Vietnam. Well, again, I have about 2 years experience living in Vietnam and working in Vietnam back in 11 years ago. And then I came back and I've been doing a regional business, returning back to Vietnam on and off, and also to Thailand, neighboring country in ASEAN. And finally, I decided to come out on my own to start up Kyocera as a tech company. And we do have an office in Vietnam, of course, and all my engineers are based in Vietnam, and myself are here based in Singapore, right? So my presentation will split into 3 components. The first one I will do a brief introductions on Kyocera. And then the second part, of course, I'll talk about the challenges from my own experience and also my team in Vietnam. And of course, the last part will be leaping forward, right? What is going to happen in the future? I'm not doing an oracle or doing a prediction, but I'm just sharing you what are the good things or what are the setbacks that I'm foreseeing. Now, next slide is about Kyocera. So Kyocera at one glance, what do we do? As what Tiffany have mentioned, we are a startup company, mainly focusing on technology, cloud-based technology. For instance, if you see at the bottom, we are the partners of Alibaba Cloud and also Google Cloud Solutions. And also in the middle, there's a Zendesk, which is a company from San Francisco. We have a worldwide presence that is giving this a omni-channel customer experience support platform for the customer who wants to have a better customer relationships with their client. So what do we do? As you can see on the middle column, we do customer experience management. We do a mobile web development, which we are trying to move away from that. And what we are focusing now really is on this, we call it a customer data platform, where how we help customers to combine all the customer insights from online and also from offline, whether they are in the e-commerce space or whether they go to the physical present. And we put all these consumers' data into a cloud platform to do some sort of a predictive analysis. And on the far right, which is a D2C, given that this COVID-19, the pandemic, a lot of business have actually tried to move into e-commerce. Of course, the fastest way, of course, they can put their website, or maybe not their website, their products on the e-commerce platform like Lazada or maybe Alibaba to sell their products. But what they can actually do is actually to improve on their own website, their presence to the consumer, which we call it a term of D2C, direct to consumer, where we will help customers to build their own e-commerce platform and also to gather all these consumer insights, right? So this is what we do at one glance for Kyocera. If you need any help on these areas, more than happy to share with you more and introduce you. Now, moving on to the next one, if currently you do a quick search on Vietnam, these are all the news that you will see about Vietnam. As earlier, this UOB, Mr. Teck Kim, and also this Mr. Tam and Dr. Quinn have shared, a lot of attention has been focusing on Vietnam itself, right? Whether the growth itself, if you look at the statistics that Teck Kim have given, Vietnam is actually one of the countries that are still on the positive side and is still growing. And to be honest, this is a good thing for all the people in Vietnam and also for the investors that are planning to invest in Vietnam. Now, however, the real thing or the real situation in Vietnam, which is I want to share with you on the next slide. I'm not going to share more on what are the news. So these are all the news that you can see on the website, but just beware whether it's a real news or fake news, so you just have to filter out yourself, right? Now, what I'm sharing with you now is the challenges or the real situations in Vietnam. The business are still going on as usual, as we know that the government in Vietnam is one of the top government that is controlling the pandemic of COVID-19. Meaning to say people are actually able to go out, go back to office. For example, my employees are still going back to the office on a daily basis. Even though in the beginning of March, we have implemented for some of our staff to work from home. And even until now, like for especially my salesperson, if they want to work from home, they are more than happy. I give them the flexibility to work from home, even though up until now. Right, business as usual, as we mentioned, but on a setback, there are also companies that are holding up each day, especially those companies that are focusing on tourism business, right? So this will be like a retail market that is focusing on tourism, hospitality, like the hotels. A lot of them, if you look at those 3-star hotels and below, a lot of the owners are holding up their business as well. And of course, the spending are slow. Right. So what I've noticed doing my tech business in Vietnam, before COVID-19, the customer that we have actually are more, how do I say, generous in a way. So I'll give you an example. If we give quotations that, of course, most of our business go into a agent basis, like per user license. When we are giving our clients, like let's say 50 users or 100 users, typically they're okay with those kind of quotations, right? They will buy in one bump. But as of now, because of this COVID-19, there's a lot of uncertainties. A lot of clients are actually more skeptical. So, for example, if I'm still hoping for like a large kind of a quotations or business from our clients, those rarely has come. But fortunately, there are still some smaller scales kind of a business that is coming in, especially in this Q3. We do see some customers are having more confidence. They do spend, but it will not be in the major bulk basis. So, for example, now we have a smaller scale business that customers are willing to test out with 10 users or even less than 10 users. But for our business, it's fine because we always look at land and scale, right? So we are okay to land the customers at the small users, and as we progressively grow, we will just expand the number of users on the license with our customers, right? As this Dr. Quinn slides earlier, she had also mentioned there an employment rate that about 9 million, if I'm not mistaken, in her slide. So there are a lot of factories, especially in the garment or in the shoes factories or even in electronics, are actually laying off people during the slow demand of the worldwide economy. So again, if you look at the positive side, if you are going to invest in Vietnam, probably the upside is more easier for you to get workers to work for you. But of course, if you look at the negative side, you might think that, hey, this is a bad timing to go in and whatnot, right? So again, it's up to you individual what you want to do. But again, my recommendations is, look at what business you're planning to do, talk to some people. If you have some local friends in Vietnam, talk to them before you guys actually eventually make your first move in, right? So these are the current challenges in Vietnam right now. It's a real thing. But good thing is, like I mentioned, business is as usual right now. People are still going back to the office. And also there's a question that's being posed by one of the audience that is the spending of the consumer going lesser. Definitely, I think it's yes, because if you look at the entertainment outlets, the government have actually kind of restrict all these entertainment outlets, right? So of course the spending will be less. I mean, from an individual wise, even though for myself, I have kind of cut down on my happy hour activities as well, right? So these are the current challenges. My next slide, which is my last slide, is leaping forward, right? This is I did not mention earlier on this previous slides. The image that I'm seeing here, those of you have actually visited Ho Chi Minh. This is actually what do you call it, the Bun Tan market, and they're actually building this underground 4-level MRT, and they are planning to go they're planning to go live in next year, early next year, right? So again, all these the leaping forward, which I highlighted here on the last slide, is a lot of mega projects are still carrying on. For example, like I showed on the previous slide, the MRT, right? For the transport infrastructures, for example, like MRT, all these are a lot of government's support initiative that keep the economy growing. And also we have the urban infrastructures, like what earlier this Mr. Tekin have mentioned. For example, like the water supply, waste treatments, all these healthcare infrastructures are heavily being invested by the local government in Vietnam. And also there's a lot of tourism spots that are in some part of this Vietnam province. All these mega projects are still carrying on, which is why if you can compare to other regions, the growth of Vietnam is still growing internally and is still sustainable with the populations that they have right now, which is more than 90 million, right? Also leaping forward, we can't deny Vietnam government, which in the beginning when this pandemic hit, a lot of people are very skeptical with the results, with more than 140 kilometers border besides China. Why Vietnam is, has so less case compared to other ASEAN countries. But to be honest, I was in Vietnam before the lockdown in February. In February itself, the government had actually stopped all the students from going to school, right? Those are actually in February. So if you can see the proactive measures that the government have taken in measures, they actually are handling this pandemic very well, and which is why a lot of confidence and a lot of domestic business are still ongoing, which is a good point. And then the second point, which is I want to touch on, or even though this Tixin and also this Dr. Quinn has mentioned, the beneficiary of supply chain relocation, right? Even before the trade war between China and US, there's a lot of investors or even the manufacturing companies in Korea or in Japan are actually looking at China +1 kind of a strategy for the business. So obviously China's +1, the nearest country within China is, of course, you have either Vietnam or Myanmar, right? Being the labor force that is provided in Vietnam, of course, a lot of manufacturing or investors are choosing to go to Vietnam, even though the language barrier is a problem. But I think if you would stay and relocate to Vietnam, my advice is you probably want to pick up the Vietnamese language and just to be able to communicate, on a daily basis with whether it's your employee or your peers or with other people in Vietnam. So during my 2 years in Vietnam, I actually picked up the Vietnamese. But it's been like 10 years now, so it's a little bit rusty. The next thing is the flight route to 6 countries. We have also showed up in Dr. Quay's slides and also in this Ms. Tam's slides. But if you notice the news, I think they have actually put on hold, but they only open up the flights to Japan as of now, right? So let's hope, as we progress, they are going to open up for these countries. And also, I'm happy to see this Dr. Quay's slides that they are considering Singapore to enter in October. So that is something that I'm really looking forward to, right? And the next thing, of course, with the trade war, will make in Vietnam the new norm. Personally, I believe it will be, because if you look at the whole Southeast Asia region, Vietnam for manufacturing, even though for the, how do you call it, the foreign talent that's being exported from ASEAN country to Singapore or even to Malaysia, there are a lot of Vietnamese that are being exported to all these countries in the manufacturing industry, right? And Vietnam people, comparatively with the ASEAN market, I would think Vietnam people are the second hardworking among beside China, right? So this is my personal opinion. Don't take my words for that, but this is my experience, doing business in Philippines, Thailand, or even in Malaysia, Myanmar. And I would say Vietnamese, they are pretty hardworking in a way. Of course, there are 1 or 2 that, tends to be more on the relaxed side. But generally, I would say they are the countries that is second next to China in terms of the hardworkingness of the employee, right? And of course, the accelerated e-commerce uptake during this pandemic. This is nothing new in Vietnam already for technologies, as what Tekin has mentioned earlier. The technology in Vietnam are actually quite advanced in a way compared to many countries, neighboring countries. So I'll give you an example for the lately, because of this pandemic, you will see a lot of our homegrown live stream actors or to sell their products online. This live stream has been going on for the past 4 years in Vietnam. People were selling products on their Facebook page and whatnot, and they have been gathering all these consumer insights and how to do the retargeting. And this is happening 4 years ago, rather than right now in the pandemic. And if you're following the news, there's actually, it's funny, it just happened, I think 2 days ago. They actually have a raid in this warehouse where they have more than 40 people in a warehouse that's doing a live stream on the counterfeit products in Vietnam. And their monthly revenue turnaround is about close to US dollar 500 million. That's amazing. So this is some of the e-commerce uptake in Vietnam, and there is nothing new about it, right? So leaping forward, I'm very positive about Vietnam market. Like I mentioned earlier, if you really want to look into investing in Vietnam, depending on what business you're in, try to talk to more people before you actually take the first steps, right? By either communicating with Dr. Quinn or Ms. Tam or myself. Now, next, I want to share with you on the news that I typically do on a day-to-day basis, which is this VietnamInsiders.vn. So it's more about, I would say, a more business kind of a news that if you want to follow up about Vietnam. So the Vietnam Insiders will be the one that I personally go and visit. And on the right one, which is Saigonia.com, which is more on the relaxed side. So if you want to know more about, the culture, the arts, or, where to drinks. They even have events on this Saigonias.com that if you ever want to go to Vietnam, you want to know what are the events you want to attend, you can go through this website, somethingelse.com, to check out some of the events that you might want to, drop in when you visit Vietnam, right? So this will end my last slides, and I will go into Q&A. Maybe I'll pass the mic back to Tiffany. Tiffany.
Okay, Ken, sure. Thanks, Sai. Thanks so much for the wonderful insights, providing additional information for the participants. Where can they find more information about Vietnam? Now, we have limited times to it, so we'll quickly jump off to the Q&A sessions. And just for all the participants' information, before we begin, for those who would like to receive the presentation deck, please take some time to scan on the QR code on the screen right now to fill up a short survey. After you have completed the form, the presentation deck will be sent to you in a few days times later after editing is done. Now, I do note that some of you guys are probably on the mobile phone. Rest assured that even after you exit out from the Zoom, you'll be redirected to another link, or you can click on the button to be redirected to the form filling itself to fill up the forms itself. Okay, and without further ado, I would like to welcome back the 5 speakers, and as usual, Sai will be the moderator for the Q&A questions as well. So if you have any questions for any of the speakers, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box, and due to the time constraint, we may not be able to answer all questions. Thus, we seek your kind understanding that should your questions not be answered during this session, please email SCCCI and we will forward your inquiries to the speakers, or we will actually have your questions sent off to the speakers for them to contact you guys. So without further ado, let me pass over to Sai. Thank you. Can I have the rest of the speakers to on your video and your mic too? And for Sai to look through at the Q&A questions. For the speakers itself, do on your Q&A icon to have a look at the list of questions available that the participants have posted up. So over to you, Sai.
Yes, I think I've got quite a few number of questions. Basically, I would pass these questions to Ms. Tham. I think it's questions from Tina, whereby she is asking, to set up a rep office in Vietnam. What are the elements involving? And also, there's a continual question that how much kind of capital outlay, to set up a rep office, including all the approvals to do a rep office in Vietnam. So please quote in USD in this case, Ms. Tham, for questions from Tina.
For set up a rep office in Vietnam, so basically, so now you are basically now, I mean the foreign traders need to prepare some corporate document from the country, like the business certificates or the audited financial report. And they need to also consider to have to appoint, I mean, the legal, I'm sorry, the chief representative of the rep office in Vietnam. In that case, if he or she is a foreigner, he have to comply with, I mean, the work permit after they do the registration for the rep office set up already. And that is basically for the document. And after the setup, they also consider to do the compliance during the operation also.
Okay, and in terms of capital outlay, do you have any ideas, or it varies from different kind of business?
Yeah, for the rep office, no capital is required for the registration, because the rep office is limited to I mean its scope of activities, like it's just to it is allowed to set up to conduct the market research, or conduct to promote the trade and other activities of the parent company, or just act as a liaison office only.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tham.
Excuse me, may I add something?
Yes, Dr. Quinn, please.
Yeah, I would like to share a link to all participants. Actually, our government go on to the e-government. So we have the link for all businesses to register online on this procedure, and specifically for Singaporean businesses. Before going online, you need to have the business registration in Singapore, and you have to have the most recent financial report translated and certified and legalized at the embassy And yeah, I don't know how to share the link by chat. So I would like to share here my screen so that you can see the link to register online and all the procedure and explanation in English here, how to register a business. And you can go online for business registration for rep office. And for that procedure, it will take only 3 days via online. And after that, you will receive a letter from the government to invite you to submit the original copy at the office of the provinces where you would like to establish your rep office. Thanks.
Okay. Dr. Quen, just for your information, your link is being shared on the chat itself. So for the participants who would like to have the link, please check your chat icon for the links itself. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be very easy, I think, for most of the attendees to join this webinar. So just follow the link like posted by Dr. Quinn. But of course, you have more personal information whereby I think there's another questions about the whether you have a tax incentive or the tax holidays for company which is raised by one of the participants. You can always go back to Ms. Tam or to check whether you have the tax holidays and what are the range, right? So I think the next questions I want to put up to Dr. Quinn is about this from Kelu. Kelu has mentioned for many companies that have shifted their production to Vietnam. Which sectors are they typically from, and when did they carry out the shift? Whether it's pre-COVID-19 or in the middle of COVID-19, or or right now we are seeing more and more people are shifting their productions to Vietnam. So Dr. Quinn, to you on these questions.
Thank you for your question. We can see that there are clearly two waves of FDI coming into Vietnam recently from 2018 to 2019, just after the US-China trade war. And for this first wave, mainly the sectors that foreign companies interested in Vietnam are manufacturing, automobile, real estate, and retail. But after the COVID-19, with the need to diversify the production chain and also to avoid the disruption, we see the inflow of FDI in IT and communication and high tech, and also in logistics and e-commerce. And from Singapore, especially, we see that the investment come from mainly small and medium enterprises via M&A firms. Yeah, up to 40% of registered capital from Singapore is done via M&A firms. But I would like to add also that Vietnam seems to benefit from trade diversions and inflow of capital and its investment. But from inside, we see that it is only short term, and it will be just one part of the story, and it will not be long. And we don't think that we are really the one who benefit from this trend, because we have not been prepared for this shift of investment. And more importantly, we have not been in a capacity to absorb it, to absorb all this inflow of capital, because China is so big and has become such a crucial, sophisticated part of the global value chain. And no other country could fit in the gap left by China, both in terms of the supply to the US market and in terms of absorbing capital and production from China. And we also see that other serious impact and negative impact have yet to come to Vietnam. because we will not only find more competition in our domestic market, but also we will see the movement of low quality goods, services, and investment, as well as the occurrences of cheatings by companies that collude to avoid US tariff on China, such as fake labeling, for example. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Quinn. I think the next questions I will take it up is actually from Chun Heng to myself, that is asking me, as a tech company, why do I want to move away from mobile development and understand that Vietnam has a big pool of software developers. You are right, as what I've mentioned by Dr. Quinn, we have graduate annually 50,000 developers or IT skilled kind of graduates year-to-year basis, right? And these are increasingly more and more young talents that you can get in Vietnam in the tech industry. But being said, like I mentioned earlier, for this technology advancement in Vietnam, mobile development or web development is actually not something new. My company, we do some sort of this kind of, like I mentioned earlier, the direct to consumer, whether it's web development or mobile development. We do that as a value add to our client, but the majority bulk of our business are actually on the cloud business, whereby we are trying to introduce our client more on the analytics side of it, using cloud components, whether it's Google or Alibaba, to do the insights and predictive analytics. And the next one that we are actually going into is the customer experience by using Zendesk. So again, I'm not saying you don't want to go into it. It's just a decision that me and my partner have taken on, that we want to move away from that and focus in other business areas, right? So I hope I've answered your questions, Chun. More than happy to get connected with you for more information. Okay, I have the next questions, which is from Kim. Kim Trang actually is asking a question, is FDI company allowed to apply as a dormancy as the business is affected by the pandemic? So maybe Ms. Tam or maybe Dr. Quinn, do you have any insights on these questions?
Sorry, just wait a minute, because I just maybe internet.
So maybe Kim, for myself, like a lot of government in other countries, whether in Singapore, they are trying to help out a lot of companies, especially in the SME perspective. Maybe to share with you my own experience, even though I have a company, a tech company there in Vietnam, my partner would have mentioned to me we could have, go and apply for all these kind of benefits from the government, but you have to put through a lot of applications, a lot of red tapes. So you might probably have to, wait some time to get the government kind of help or those kind of incentives that would be, rebated back for your company. So for myself, what we actually do as a countermeasure, instead of waiting for this, we actually make very harsh decisions, especially when this pandemic started in March. We actually go through several rounds of the, how do I say, employee salary reductions. And, as we progress and we don't get so much business, we actually lay off some of our engineers as well. So this is the hard measure that me and my partner have to take, personally on ourselves and on the company. And of course, when in May, when we heard about the news that, hey, Vietnam is actually the first market to open up, we actually start hiring back our people, especially on the sales sites, thinking that, we will get more business. But the real challenge is, even though we actually hired 2 new salespeople to join us in June and July, but even though with that we try to reach out to the market to get business, the reality is not many people are willing to spend money. So in terms, within the 2 months trial period, we actually lay off these new hired salespeople that we hired as well, right? So this is the a real scenario that I'm sharing with you, Kim, from my own perspective. And maybe if Ms. Tam, they have more information for this kind of dormancy that you can apply for your business, maybe they will get back to you through an email, right? Or you can write to them directly.
Yes, it's better. So I think that for this question, so I think that it's better for us to try to answer what email.
Okay, I think I have the last question here from Francis, which is you want to know about the financial funds from banks and leasing company, especially for the local Vietnam SME during the pandemic. Now, so Francis himself is selling machinery into Vietnam and would like to know if there are any companies or financial funds or, or from banks that they can actually tap into.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that if you are Singaporean business and not yet entering in Vietnam markets as an established investor in Vietnam, you cannot ask for the funding from government, but your partners as small and medium enterprises, they can turn to the small and medium development fund from the government to get the preferential funding up to 2 million Sing dollars for the period up to 7 years and with a preferential rate of 90% of the compulsory rate. And for the COVID-19 situation, our government set up also a special fund for small and medium enterprises, and you can borrow up to 100,000 Sing dollars at a preferential rate of 50% of the compulsory rate. But you must be your partner must be small and medium enterprises from Vietnam. Also, for the question, for the previous question, I would like to add that for companies, for those FDI company that want to stop temporarily their activity in Vietnam due to COVID-19, actually the procedure is quite simple. It's much more simple than the procedure to dissolve the enterprises. You just need to apply via the e-government portal for the notice to stop temporarily your activity, and you need to send the notice to the province where you ask for the business registration at least 15 days before you decide to stop your business activities in Vietnam.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Quinn. I think this will wrap up our webinar today. I'll pass the mic back to Tiffany.
Okay, thank you, Sai. Thank you so much for moderating the whole session. Now we've come to the end of the webinar, and thank you for participating, and a big thank you to Sai, Quen, Tam, and Thang for your time and valuable sharing today. We hope that you have benefited a lot from the webinar session. And also, please let us know your comments on the webinar through the feedback survey. You can scan the QR code on the screen or follow the redirect link after you have closed this session. Now, we have also another exciting session lined up for you tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Please join us for the Thailand market edition of Thriving in the Next Future of ASEAN. So please stay safe and healthy, and see you soon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Mr. Chan.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Dr. Quen.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.